it will be a great problem for many car makers to deal with the situation where you see bankruptcies.
Yeah, and also many of these tier ones are the ones that, not in Europe, but in Asia, that have invested in these large machines. And now they have the double punch in that case.
Yeah,
That
really.
the customer sometimes going out of business, sometimes it's themselves and they don't selling enough to even keep up with the interest payments of the machines.
Yeah. Hello and welcome back to the Goldcasting podcast. Today, me and Fabian has something serious stuff to discuss with you, and we would like to discuss, is there a financial bubble going to break within the gigacasting economy? So very welcome to this exciting podcast episode where we will try to analyze this, see the risks and see if there is any risks or if some people are just BS about this. So hang on.
Perfect. Also, welcome from my side. And we think we should make clear at the beginning that we are big fans of gigacasting. And I think it opened up so many more opportunities for the foundry world to putting them back on the maps and on the minds of the target customer, which are the OEMs. But there are some other sides that currently we see the first stars aligning in a bit of negative way. So that's why we're here and discuss it today.
Yeah.
Staffan, I think you collected some data to underline what we are thinking about.
Yeah, let's look first a little bit on the landscape. We know that these machines are very, very big. We're talking about 6,000 tons, 9,000 tons. If we look at the statistics, big machines, 4,000 tons and larger, you got 76 in North America, 68 in Europe, and 158 in China. Nothing that strange in this. This is what we see. Most of them are, I would say, just about installed or about to be installed. So that's one side of the coin. The second side of the coin is if you look at what people reported the gain from using gigacastings. I mean, it's like we heard it in Kassel, 77% part reduction from Ford, 41% mass reduction, meaning weight, 11% cost improvement. So, of course, it looks really good. So why the heck are we even discussing if this could be a little bit of a setback in near future or not, Fabian? What do you think?
There are several things. So if you compare it to a mixed material assembly of these 77 parts, yes, you get that cost advantage. But if you're looking at a full steel construction, that thing is still cheaper than a gigacasting. However, it's double the weight. So there's a trade-off there. But there are cheaper ways to produce things, not more efficient, but cheaper ways. And then again, it comes down to the volume. And the critical thing is what we are looking at, these massive machines that trigger high investment costs. Now the economy is tanking. Interest rates are still on a higher level than it used to be. And then looking at the utilization, especially in China, just 1/3 of the machines are utilized. So two-thirds of the machines, multi-million-dollar investments, just standing around collecting dust.
Question is, why are they standing still? I mean, a portion of them might be not installed yet or just about installed. So they are into commissioning. So maybe the 30% could be a little bit too critical here, but still a big portion seems to be standing still. And I wonder why, actually.
Yeah, it depends. When you look at especially at these Chinese OEMs, they usually have a shop-in-shop concept for their gigacasting. So a tier one supplier builds up the foundry and delivers directly to the OEM next door. And in these circumstances, you're quite locked down who you can sell to. And some of these Chinese OEMs that are massive amount of OEMs around there that just produce EVs using the gigacasting to avoid building up a whole supply chain. And you have to sell the car to sell a gigacasting.
They're so integrated.
Yeah. And we've seen it at the Gigacasting conference. Hong Chu showed, okay, we're producing it at one plant at Gigacasting for 4 different car models, and saying, oh, 4 models. That should be a volume. Yeah, that volume is maximum 12,000 cars per month. So not that many when you compare it to a Ford One F-150 plant, which is 1,000 cars per day.
Yeah, yeah. But let's put this in perspective. I'm older than you, so the first crisis I remember was in 1976, the oil crisis. But if you let's dust take the dust off my bald head and speak about something in modern life. We had a bank crisis in 1990. That was pretty serious. We had an IT crash in 2000. We had a finance crash again, 2008. And then we had actually, at least in some parts of the world, a crash around COVID-19 2021. Historically, if you are interested in history, there are some fundamentals in this. And they could either be the spark that ignites this is always a small thing. It could be, I don't know, someone saying something or someone actually missing out a payment of the loan, and then house of cards starts to crumble. But before that, you have a long time of speculations or overinvestment, right? That's
Absolutely.
the mutual thing for all crises. You have a speculation from the tulips 1605 or whatever it was in Holland to today. So do we have that?
But I think also that you really need a vision to start an investment process. And the crisis begins at that point when reality catches up to your vision and you see discrepancies between the two.
Yeah. But if we look now, car industry, okay, what have we had until just 20 months ago? We have had massive investment. I would suggest that all car makers have to keep up with investment, not to fall behind. That's one thing. So speculation in future sales, speculation in future growth has been a driving force, but now you're in the race, you cannot stop investing. So that's number one from my side. Number two from my side is that we have 100 more car brands. I mean, let's face it, we have car brands all over the place right now.
Yeah, they're popping up everywhere. And it's just like they're selling white label cars and you just slap your logo on, but it's actually single use production. And there has to be some wipeout of some of the companies because not all concepts, not all brands will survive that. As also the volumes are going down in overall sales, and then each OEM chipping up some volumes from each other. So the volume per OEM getting lower, even for the legacy OEMs. And also, when you look deeper into the financials, they are highly leveraged. The debt of these legacy OEMs is crazy.
Yeah.
So there must be dying in interest payments alone without taking anything on the principal.
Exactly. So you have a lot of investments, you have very high loans, you have a lot of car makers, meaning dividing the money from the consumer among more players on the market, meaning everybody get lesser. And then you have the fundamentals that the car sales are actually dropping. We know this. So it's not even that you have more to share with, you have lesser to share with more players out there. So it seems to me a little bit like a perfect storm.
Yeah, also, when you look at the economy, buying a brand new car is the least of your agenda when you're facing with difficulties. Can I keep my job? Everything around the living expenses increases. So buying a car is not the option when you need a car for mobility. Then it's a cheap one or it's a used one. But you're not gonna say, okay, now let's buy and finance a new one.
And then on top of everything, you have this political turmoil on a global scale.
Yeah. Currently, with Trump inventing new tariffs every day, there's so much uncertainty and unpredictability in the market, which is never good. Without knowing what he wants to do and having not enough information to do a judgment on that, just by having so many quick changes in the world trade, you will have problems.
Probably. Yeah, I'm not putting any value or aspect on it. We can just conclude that the free trade or the fair trade or whatever that you like to call it is under pressure. Even if we record this a few weeks before we publish, it would be pretty safe bet to say uncertainty will be on some level higher than it was a year ago. That's for sure. So we have a perfect storm. We think it could be a setback, right?
Yep, we think so.
Another one bites the dust, or many others will bite the dust. If you want to buy a car brand, you probably can pick one or two up fairly cheap in due time, I would say. Staffan's cars. I mean, what about that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds nice.
yeah. But
With
we
the
also.
hunting rival storage facility in the
Oh
trunk.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
And
For-
doggy doors on the side.
yeah. And then like a special compartment that is isolated from all the gravel and the dirt and shit and the stuff from the dog, so the missus can walk into the car without getting a dog hair on her clothes. I mean that's a great invention. Maybe I can sell 5 a year.
Yeah, do you know that Simpsons movie when Homer had to design the perfect car and he built one crazy expensive car with 2 domes, one for the kids and one for them, that they have a safe and quiet travel?
That's so great.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that will be something that, yeah, it will not be that way, but not every car concept, not every car brand will sell enough cars to make the cut and to be profitable to survive that.
But we know a few things, right? We know from history, like the IT crash, that things are still there, right?
Things are still there. And also, what led to that was that everything was overhyped. You could do that, and companies that were just scanning a telephone book and putting it up on the internet were billion-dollar companies. Of course, they crashed. There is no value added, and that's clear. But the companies like Amazon that had a business model that was bringing in a value and was used by the people is still around. They crashed as well. But if you put up and got some stock in 2001, you'd be sitting in your beach house at the moment. Congratulations. But Amazon's still around. They're doing an amazing job. And that's the same thing what we are expecting with the gigacasting. That thing is not going away. And that's just reiterating it. We said it in several podcasts. Gigacasting came to stay. It's just that not every gigacasting manufacturer is going to stay.
No. But it will be an awakening, I think. It will be. But if you picture now, the way we get a setback, we see some brands go out to the market. People are sobering up a little bit. Maybe they will take one step back and say, okay, but next time we invest in a big machine, we need to fulfill certain things like, I don't know, mechanical properties or productivity or something else. That's pretty likely to happen. What will it bring to the car industry? I mean, it has been bad times for quite some time now. If we will get another boop drop down and a little bit of a technology crisis and challenging, what do you think will happen?
What will happen is that you go a step back. So instead of designing parts for 12, 16,000 ton machines, maybe go a big back, going 4,400, 6,000, maybe 8,000, which is still pretty large machines, but a fraction of the size and the investment cost of these large machines. And with that smaller size, put more effort in the engineering, learn more about how to get good properties. So it comes down to tool design, thermal management of the dies. It comes down to the alloy, how to improve the flowability, look into new technologies like Rio casting to get the flow length. All of these things that need time to fully understand and try it out.
So back to the engineering. That's what you're saying.
Basically, back to the engineering.
I think you're absolutely right. You have to go from PowerPoint to reality, and you have to push out what 60 seconds per cycle, and have a car model that is actually selling. And I think a rude awakening is what we have been seeing, and we will see even more.
Yeah, the funny thing is when you look, especially comparison to many Chinese OEMs with their last gigacasting sales And the legacy OEM said, yeah, we'll stick to 4,400, maybe 6,000 ton. Yeah, probably they will be the ones laughing now when they put in the efforts in the engineering and try to maximize the output of their existing machines. And then when they understood how to do it, then scale it up and not go the other way around.
Do you think this has been the long-term strategy here in Europe? I mean, myself, for one, has been complaining about everything is happening in Asia, and Asia is such a great market, and nothing happens in Europe. Have these directors of German car makers just been walking around and said, "You wait and see, I will be back"?
To be honest, and being very direct in that, I don't think they haven't thought that far. It's more or less like they thought, oh, damn, we have to get in these crazy investments. Money is tight. Rather not do it. Let's stay what we're having and try to optimize it there. Because on one side, it involves more people that you have to employ, as all these contracts with the labor unions is like you cannot fire people until 2029 or 2031 or something like that. So you have to find work for the people and use the machines you already bought. I think that's also something that differentiates a new OEM, which doesn't have a supply chain, to an existing one with especially their own foundries. They have invested in these machines. They would be quite stupid to not utilize them.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think that I'm just talking BS here, the thing is, we just had a bankruptcy in Sweden, you know, the Northvolt factory. It's not a gigacasting, but I mean, it's pretty closely linked to it. And what was it? 28 billion euros that was thrown out of the window overnight. That's a big pile of money for the batteries.
Yep. And especially when you go into an electric vehicle, you need the batteries. So it's really interesting that this also saw at Northvolt, they didn't get the contracts they wanted, as everybody said, okay, let's wait if they will establish on the market. And because of that hesitation all around, they never got into the market.
No, and what was the critical thing? If I read a lot of articles, I don't know, maybe they're copying each other, but it was that they never was successful in starting production. That was the thing. They had a projection of the number of millions of cells to be produced, and they made 10% of it. And people were, you know, after 1 year about, okay, then we buy our battery from someone else who actually knows how to produce it. And this is the thing. People that knows how to produce things will actually probably be the winners.
Yeah, it's hard to ship out some ideas that are not existing in physical products when you want to build something physical. And
yeah. Well, I'm afraid of, if we think about it, what will happen if we have a shakedown, a lot of brands going bankrupt, the old guys coming back. I'm afraid of one thing, and that is that the traditional having tier ones for subsystems, they will take a massive hit because of one reason. They were not wealthy enough before. They're underfinanced, they're low on margins. You know who I'm thinking about, subsystems, basically. And I see them being the big losers in this. Too easy to replace.
I think there's also another thing coming in, that you see the advancement into technology and foundries connecting, collaborating along the whole supply chain, as we had in the previous podcast. With that collaboration, that's one big block of business that the tier ones did, connecting different industries and different suppliers to get a supply chain built up. If you do it now as a one single unit, you don't need a tier one anymore. And with that, it's much easier. You don't have this massive overhead as a cost block in between. So you get a better product at a cheaper price without and just killing the middleman. And the middleman is the tier one in that case. There's another thing for building these subsystems, for building for climate controls, battery systems. These are not affected by that because there needs way more know-how. But these just buying a bit of sheet metal, buying a bit of casting, welding, screwing them together, and shipping them out. These things are hard to come by now with the collaboration. And then you see it already with all these, especially German tier ones. They cut thousands of jobs out of there, and they even started that their suppliers have to pay money to continue the business, that you have to give a discount as an upfront payment. totally crazy.
Yeah. What I'm saying, the crisis in the tier one, if you look at the subsystems, meaning the ones with a circuit board, a casting, a cable, basically, that is how many products look like. The valuation of these companies will be almost that you will get paid to overtake them. Because the projection is bad, the loan situation is bad, the margin is even worse, and and the electrical cars are having other subsystems. So if you're not well positioned for, I don't know, carbon dioxide compressor systems, for example, I don't think you have a major issue. Because who will actually pick you up? And who will own this issue will be the car makers, because it's not that easy from Monday to Tuesday to switch for another supplier of air conditioning equipment or suspensions or whatever we're talking about. I think it will be a great problem for many car makers to deal with the situation where you see bankruptcies.
Yeah, and also many of these tier ones are the ones that, not in Europe, but in Asia, that have invested in these large machines. And now they have the double punch in that case.
Yeah,
That their
really.
customer sometimes going out of business, sometimes it's themselves and they don't selling enough to even keep up with the interest payments of their machines.
Yeah. But I think we will be right, but I'm uncertain of which region that will take the biggest hit. Because if I look at it, I'm kind of thinking that, especially in China, a lot of these brands, so you could draw the conclusion pretty directly that, okay, it will be worse in China. But on the other hand, they have another way of financing and funding of their companies. So what I'm saying is that I think many brands, they will survive on the paper, but it will be owned by someone else that will start to aggregate them into a family. Some will be put to sleep and some will actually be kept because they represent some sort of value. So I'm not sure if the worst place will be China, Europe, US, or whatever it will be.
Interesting statement. Let's see how it will turn out, because we've seen it in the past that OEMs save certain companies to keep their production lines open, but with them struggling as well. So they have to be way more selective.
Yeah, I know.
O-
I know.
Or maybe use that as a scapegoat to get government subsidies.
That's another thing. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that would be the European approach. First go to the government and then solve your own problems.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And if I knew the answer, I would probably be becoming very rich because then I would know what to do. But not many people are asking me anyway.
But we can ask you, as you're just listening and watching, why don't you let us know in the comments what's your opinion on that? Are we completely out of our minds, or do you see similar things? Let us know. We are happy to discuss that.
Oh yeah, more than happy. And if your comment is intriguing us, why don't you join and be interviewed? Because we are always looking for interesting people to interview that has some deep insights and some kind of a thing. Nerds are the new heroes in this, I would say. Another thing that I think will happen is nothing.
What do you mean by nothing? That nothing will happen?
No, it will happen. We will see this shakedown of brands and all these things. We will see some tier ones biting the dust. We'll see some governmental savings. We will see turmoil on the free trade or fair trade. And people will think that we're all going to die. And then we will wake up, even if it gets worse. And then business will continue. Gigacasting will be the design philosophy for new car models. Totally sure. And we will see that it will be another day. The sun will rise and we will pay taxes, and people will need means of transportation. So again, I'm older than you. We survived 1976. We survived the yellow Mazdas. We survived Barings Bank and the Hong Kong crisis and financial crisis. We even took us through the financial crisis with all the speculations, and we bailed out the banks up here and the IT crash. Believe me, I'm from Sweden. I think we were, together with California, one of the worst regions for it, where you were paid 200 euros to just go to an interview for a job. They paid people to go there. So I see the signs, but I think there's more value underneath the gigacasting revolution and the EV revolution to be totally flushed away. So it will be a setback, and then we will move on with engineering, as you say, Fabian.
Absolutely. And I think, as most of our listeners do not operate a gigacasting foundry, I think it also has an impact on every foundry out there that's producing parts for the automotive. One thing that I have to make absolutely clear is that you cannot stop investing and leveling up your foundry, because any commodity business is and will stay out of Europe, as the price pressure is so high. You cannot survive on that, even with the highest volumes and the perfect automatization. It doesn't work anymore, because the ones in Far East can also buy robots and can also operate foundries where no one works there. So that's something where you have to really look into how can you maximize the projected area in your machines, how can you optimize your tool lifetimes, how can you improve the part quality, how can you get in a new product spectrum, maybe something outside automotive, and invest money and especially time and resources. I think the most important resource you can employ in these things is human brain capital.
Ooh,
What's your take on that?
That leads me to my take on it. I would like to make a quote here. I think the new era in casting is bad for foundries and good for the people. Let me explain. Many family-owned businesses will have a hard time. If we have a setback in the gigacasting economy, it will be even worse because car sales are dropping and all that. But for people that knows things and have experience, the employer's market is much better, because the people you need to run these big structural changes that we see now, both in the purchasing side and the selling side of the table, is actually good. So again, if you are happy to move around a little bit, maybe you will end up on the other side of the table. But it's a comeback of knowledge. It's a comeback of the nerd that is needed to get things to work in a cost-efficient way.
Absolutely. I think that's perfectly summarized. But I do have a problem with one of your statements, that it will be a especially difficult time for the family-owned businesses. And I have to object to that.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, they can be the ones that are phased out first, as they are usually a bit limited in getting a capital. Like if you're stock listed, you can issue new stocks and get money that way. That is something you cannot do as a family-owned business. But as a family-owned business, you can take faster decisions than anybody else. And I think with utilizing that, you can get into very nice, very profitable business very quickly.
Yeah, I'm sorry for using the word
So
family
I
business.
don't think there's a middle ground for the family-owned. You will be the ones winning, or you will be the one getting wiped out.
Yeah.
But I don't think there will be a middle.
Finally owned businesses have one super advantage. They are, as we say, by themselves in their own trousers, meaning they can take decisions. They know exactly how much they have at a bank account. They have the experience of being alone and taking the decisions alone and facing the consequences of them. That is something you never find in bigger foundries.
No, and also they can take uncommon decisions.
Yes.
Something like buying a large machine, investing in smaller machines, getting new technology, or overpaying for the brightest minds and get them work in your foundry.
Or do a merger.
Yep.
They can probably line that up in 1 week and get going with someone that are like-minded. So, but you see my take.
Or even, it doesn't need to be a merger. It can also be something like a global alliance. For example, your family-owned business working in Europe, and you collaborating with one in North America, that you share, for example, a global reach, and you bring the European volume and you develop together, share ideas, and as you're not competitors in your regions.
I already see this in my daily work. I see this. They are not massive companies that are building up alliances. That's one thing I see. Another thing I see now, a few good examples of people leaving the foundry side to the purchasing side. And as far as I can tell, they're doing great with a new employer. Because again, the knowledge is lacking. There's a need of a higher volume of the knowledge and the know-how. And That is something one should think about.
Yes, or I can add something before you make your point, is that with the collaborations and alliances, being a family-owned business and having that alliance gives that alliance way more stability than being an operated and there's a CEO change and he doesn't care about the alliance because he doesn't know about it, or is his former employer and doesn't want to work with them. I don't know. That's something that is a change in leadership changes the dynamic of the alliance. But if it's family owned, you're way more stable and consistent over time, and that's something that makes these alliances stronger and more durable, even for the hardest crisis.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that's been in some kind of relationship knows that the quality of the relationship tells you how long it can endure bad times.
Yeah.
So, very important point, I would say. Okay, a lot of talking about the gigacasting, and if we see something happening, we have a couple of conclusions. Number one, we see the similarities with the IT bubble and the financial bubbles, but we think there's more underlying value. We think that the design is here to stay, but we think it will go back to engineering to make it work better. And we also think that will be business as usual. But what's also happening, small foundries will take the hit. Be happy if you're family owned, as discussed. But for the people, there's a great opportunity in front of us because more knowledge is needed, more volume of knowledge, more people that actually know things. But maybe you will be sitting on the other side of the table, the purchasing side. Who knows? But there's a great market out there for people that know something.
Yep. And it's also time for the tier ones to reinvent themselves and be able to survive that, because I think these are the first one that are in high danger.
I think you're absolutely right on that sentence. So, a snappy one, maybe not as super positive as always. So happy that you're listening to us. And again, you guys that have come up to me now in it is trade fairs and conferences, really appreciate talking to you. And as Fabian always say, if we don't meet in person, write us a line, make a comment, and we reach out to you because it's always interesting to meet you guys and hear your thoughts and ideas and visions about things. So thank you very much for listening in today.
Don't forget to subscribe. And then we see us in the next episode in 2 weeks.
See you around. Sayonara. Hej då.